Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking with Talent. My name is Christopher Dukes, and today I have with me the fantastic Dan Burman, actor, entrepreneur, producer, combat stuff, which we'll get onto in a little bit, extraordinaire. And thank you so much for joining me today, mate. It's an absolute pleasure having you on. And but yeah, I always kind of begin our show with how it all began for you. Now, I know you went to East 15 and did the combat course there, or the sort of acting with stage combat and screen combat.
I didn't really know that that's what I was getting in for when I went, if I'm honest. Like I'd been doing acting since I was about 8, like fell in love with it, then got terrified of this aspirational speaker from Guildford, who came in and gave us a load of false statistics about how you're always going to struggle as an actor, and was like, okay, don't want to do that anymore. What do I do instead? So like took a year out and did a couple of youth theatre shows that had some stage combat in, and then found out about this course. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go and be a fight director like that, because that's kind of adjacent to the industry. It's probably not as competitive, and I'll probably, have a better chance of getting work. And then went on to the course. It was only the second year that the course had been running, so they were still finding their feet, realized it was still quite acting intensive, fell completely back in love with acting again, and was like, I don't care. Like, I don't care how hard this is. I'll live out of a suitcase until I'm 60 if I have to. I want to do this.
Yeah. And so what was the training like at East 15? Because I've got a few people I know actually who have, I think, since have actually went through that course themselves, and they rave about it. They say it's fantastic. So how was your experience there?
I mean, it was amazing. Like you're normally spending at least 4 hours of a day with a weapon in your hand, and I always said, like, your worst day holding a sword is probably better than your best day holding a pen. And it was and then it meant that we all graduated with a trade. I went out and started doing special action performance work and fight arranging work, and it kept us really fit, and it teaches you to act with your whole body as well, like going out, like or acting with a prop, even though that prop is a sword. Like, the fact that you're not suddenly holding something and then you go into your actor stance or things like this. So yeah, it was really deeply physical, like gave me great, some really amazing things under the hood, if you like, which could, the combat stuff then fused very well into the acting side of it. It meant it was really strange when you first graduated to be kind of like, what am I? And the industry were like, what are you? So it was this kind of like hybrid action performer, but also a trained actor. How do I put this on my CV without sounding like I'm lying somewhere?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I really rate it. I kind of, post-pandemic, I kind of want to go back and like do a bit of training, do a bit of teaching with some of the new intake of students.
Yeah. And at East 15 or your own company?
So I'd love to go back to East 15, but I also do. I've just launched a new thing called, I think I called it Combat in the Park. I think that's what I called it. Just an idea of getting people out and moving and social again, and like bringing people together, like still keeping like household bubbles together if people are still, on edge and nervous about COVID, but a way of getting people out there and getting people moving, like my own sort of like, kind of, I've just realized it's kind of a bit like Joe Wicks, but punching each other in the face.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, it's good exercise. One of the first times I was in like a mocap shoot doing mocap, I came out of the volume and I was just dripping, and everyone was kind of like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "I'm sweaty."
Yeah, man.
Good change, love it.
Oh God, like I remember like my first ever day at East 15, we started off, and the third and fourth lesson, final 2 lessons of the day were rapier and dagger. And I was like, oh my God, 4 hours of rapier and dagger. This is amazing. Got about 45 minutes in and was like, oh my God, because we had no form, we had no technique, and so we're just trying to like brute strength it out, and just your shoulders were taking all of the brunt of it. And it really is. I train dancers, I train physical theater people, I train cabaret people, and there are certain elements of it that you just do not learn in other physical disciplines. So, and it hits you differently. It hits your body differently.
What's your favorite of the sort of repertoire, I guess, you've done, or not even through training, just done, whether that is rapier, quarterstaff, long sword, short sword, broadsword? What is your favorite one that you've ever had to, that you've got to use, I guess, or just learnt in, actually, either way?
Yeah, so my favorite one that I did a test in was probably small sword.
Okay.
I was told in my first year, like, oh, you're probably going to be best at small sword because you've got quite tight hips. Little did I know, and it meant that I could sort of stand very, very sort of tall, and also the fact that you do like 3 or 4 different moves on a step, like it's very fast and furious. It's all about scratches, and small sword was never it was more of a flashy weapon than a deadly weapon. You duel with it, you'd run someone through, but it would be like a needle. So you'd see it historically where people would be like, okay, you win, that's fine. Would you mind just going and wiping the blades at the back? Because it's gone into a wall and I kind of don't want to pull that back through myself. And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like we figured out our quarrel now, and we can go for this. And I'll happily help you out now. Our beef is over. So then, they'd go and like wipe it and pull it out, and then they go and see a doctor. But yeah, I love the speed of it. I think it's really fun. It makes a great noise. It was actually the weapon that I bought myself for graduation. So I have a small sword nice. From the same people that make the weapons at East 15. What have I done? You get asked some really weird and wonderful things as a fight director. Like you get asked to fight with some strange old things. I never ended up actually working on this project, and for a multitude of reasons, it was a big regret. But it was at one point I was going to choreograph a fight with some tentacles, with some like I think they were practical effects tentacles. It was a bizarre short film about a woman's terror of having a smear test and what was going to happen. So this like tentacled monster was going to appear and attack the doctors and everything like this. And this was what I was going to come and choreograph to do. One of the reasons why I'm really gutted that I didn't get a chance to work on it is because the director of that was Kate Herron, who is now the director of Loki.
Yeah. So
you don't have to get some weird and wonderful things.
Yeah, I don't even know how you go about doing that. Like, anyway, but that's outstanding. But it's also not your only thing that you've worked on with many arms and many legs, if you will. There is the segue, because Dan Burman is actually in the Human Centipede. 1 or 2. Or 3, I don't even know how many there are. 2.
I think there are 3 now, but yeah, okay. I was in number 2.
Okay. And at what part of the Centipede were you?
So I was number 7 of 10. I think there were 10, maybe there were 12 at one point.
Right.
And it's so funny. People ask me about this, and they're like, because obviously you see the film, and the film is carnage, and like there's certain elements of that film, like where I'm just like, it's too much. And I know why it was too much. The entire film was a reaction from like one Tumblr post that the director saw that from about the first one of like, oh, it's not real horror, this is like My Little Pony. He must have referenced that about 3 times a day. And you could tell that he just went, all right. And yeah, and then has just created this thing about like as disgusting as it looks on set, on screen, and as intensely problematic as some of the scenes are towards the end. I must admit, I had to stifle laughter so many times on that set. I was laughing my face. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? This is so ridiculous. Like, what do you want us to do now? Sure, all right, cool.
It's probably not something that you imagine yourself doing. You know, you're fresh into drama school and you're thinking, right, I want to be a actor like these absolute masterclass of actors, and instead you're sewn to a person's cheeks.
Yeah. Well, even before that, like we got told on like before we even started filming, we got told that we had to go to this prosthetics guy who's like one of the biggest prosthetics people in the world. Like it's really fascinating. Like you go to their workshop and it's kind of like a Tim Burton, like, you know, everything's made of body parts. Like the coffee table's made of body parts. Like there are faces up on the wall of famous people, of all the people that he's cast, and he sits you there and he brings you out this book, and it's like, oh, there's me with Arnie, there's me with Sylvester Stallone, there's me with Tom Hanks, there's me with like Jennifer Hudson, like there's, you know what I mean, all these people. And then at the very end he takes a picture with you and puts it in the back.
Oh, no way.
So you're part of the experience. But I digress. The reason why this was so mad is because we told we had to go there, and I thought, oh, in the film I get, there's a part where I get my knee cut open. So they wanted to like cast my knee.
Right.
No, that's not why we were there. That's one of the reasons why we were there, but that's not the main reason. The main reason is because we all got prosthetic bum covers made.
Yep.
And so that ended up with me on all fours on a table with someone slathering blue goo all over
there,
everywhere. Like just about everywhere you can imagine that blue goo went.
And if you don't mind my asking, were you starkers for that? Were you in the nude, or were you still wearing clothes?
Oh no, it's stuck to your skin.
Oh, good.
It got everywhere.
Yeah.
It was emotional.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite something. That's quite something. So yeah, if you want to check out Dan's prosthetic bum, you can go on watch Human Centipede 2. But you've also worked, going back to your fight stuff. Let's do away from that. You've worked with some amazing stuff like the Pirates of the Caribbean series. You're in number 3 or 4 of that, was it?
4. So on Stranger Tides, 4.
And you were in the final sequence with the chalice. If that's, I'm thinking I'm getting that around. That is number 4 when they find the chalice. Yeah. Also, trying not to, spoilers. Even though the film's been out for like 8 years, go on, see it. You're fine. Probably longer than that. Anyway, digressing. How was the experience of actually working on set with? Because in that sequence, there is loads of people in that cave area, cavern. So I think it's a cavern. So how was that, having that sort of, I guess, mass battle sequence choreographed?
Well, again, you talk about being, fresh out of drama school, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, right? This was around the same kind of time. So I was like, it was probably one of my first professional jobs.
Oh, wow, nice.
And you're at Pinewood, you're in the 007 stage. And like, I'd find myself just getting lost in the set, like in the art department, and looking at all of it. Because if you didn't look up and look at the lights and look at the rig, like you were in a real cave. You're in this real beautiful, majestic cave. Like they created this entire like back wall of like flowing water, which you could only see part of because there was then like a V shape that like cut into the cavern, obviously for like, for sweeping shots. It was like just around the time of the 3D camera and everything like this. There were certain parts that they shot in 3D, but like, yeah, it was just the size and the scale of the production and the people around you, it was interesting. It was kind of a bit like American football special teams, where like, the main actors would all be like, let's fight, cut, bring the fight guys in, and everyone would just like replace everyone out. I'll take the hat, yeah, sweet, action, but yeah, it was incredible. Like, you know, getting to see people like Jeffrey Rush. You know, I was like back to back fighting with Ian McShane half the time. Like, just seeing Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. Like, Stephen Graham was in that one, and like seeing he's like such a cheeky chappy on set. Like, you know, the one person that I've ever seen literally just run, like literally finished cut and he just ran because he was desperate for a wee and just went. And yeah, just being on something of that size and that scale, you know, like Disney main unit food, man, something else. You know, they had a barbecue grill outside the main food tent, like cooking steaks every, like, you know, twice a week or once a week or something like that. Also being in half of my accessories that I was wearing, because I wasn't wearing much, was Bill Nye's. Was his the hat and the boots that I were wearing were the exact ones that he'd worn for Davy Jones in the previous two. Like, they still had his name in the little, you know, in the little tag that was on there. I'm like, what is going on? This is madness. This is huge. And I must admit, I had the Pirates of the Caribbean theme tune running through my head almost every time I fought.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still would do now. No, that is brilliant. And you know, that's actually led you on to do other stuff, like you were in Snow White and the Huntsman. Is that right?
Yeah.
So sort of experience of fight choreography in that.
Yeah, so that one was a little bit quicker. That was whereas, like, you know, Pirates it ended up being about a 3-month gig.
Wow.
Because they brought us in expecting to just sort of train us for a bit and then we go straight in. But because there were delays, we ended up training for about a month and a half and then filming for another month and a half. And, you know, it literally took for Prometheus to be like literally banging on the door, being like, guys, we had this booked.
Yeah.
Come on. Whereas Snow White and the Huntsman was much more whistle stop. It was more sort of a bit more mercenary, like get there on the day and, like, you know, fill through a crowd. You know, it was literally a case of like, find someone who is not dressed in the same costume as you, come up with a 6 to 8 move fight. Don't get killed by the horses.
Good.
Like, it was so much more like just figure it out, guys, which was quite fun in a lot of ways, because a lot of people that went on that job weren't really trained. So I was kind of finding people that were safe and that I knew that I could fight and everything like this. And then, or like finding people that weren't really that good or that safe and being like, okay, you guys figure out how you want to try and look the best. I'm gonna die on move 3 and just curl up into a little ball, stay out of the way and stay safe, like, because I'm not dying today by these horses. I must admit, it was a little bit more like, it was a bit more hectic, that one. I had an extra swing a sword at me once, unagreed, unchoreographed, just like, and I managed to catch it as well. Like, I was sort of fighting. He swung the sword at me, and I sort of like knocked it, hit it away, and like carried on, and just sort of turned to the guy afterwards, like lifted my helmet up and looked at him. And I must, you know, trying to give my like best sort of like mad dog looking at this person, but inside I was going, nearly just died.
Off the mouth and everything.
Literally, it was a very, very hectic job in a car park.
Right.
That was all shot in a car park. Because there wasn't enough space at Pinewood. So they built that entire castle in the extras car park.
It's pretty decent. That's pretty, the set design, guys, and just incredible. I love the special features and watching how I think it was actually the Pirates of the Caribbean one that I remember them actually making all the rocks and that sort of stuff. I'm not sure for which film I was watching that for. But just the carpentry and everything with it. Take Lord of the Rings, like Theoden's Golden Hall, like they had to take it down because of a flower, and you're like, what? Like, it was an endangered flower on it or something like this, and they had to basically take it down brick by brick again. I just god. Anyway,
on the first day that we were shooting Snow White, we were at in these woods in Rickmansworth, which are like they're like the prettiest woods in the world, like they're so photogenic. It's the same woods that they used for the barbarian fights in Gladiator, because like the trees are really nicely spaced out, so you can get these great like sweeping shots. But like when we were doing these charging scenes, we were all sort of like lined up full plate armor, and we had the horses like jumping through us, like jumping through our ranks. Terrifying. But like whilst we were there, they had there were like these protected newts, or these protected I think they were newts, and it was like they had to like cover this one particular bit in this tarpaulin, and no one could go near it, and no one could fight anywhere near it, because it was like, this is, don't mess with the newts, guys. I don't care how much money you've got, I don't care who you bring in, we don't mess with the newts on this gig.
It's amazing the things they have to sort of I guess deal with, in the sense of making sure everything conservationists and all that sort of stuff, and everything that is sort of natural and must be left as such. It's good. It is good. It also is a feat of craftsmanship that they can take it down without it being there afterwards, and having no sort of mark of it. That's also impressive. So I guess to tie up this sort of section before we move on, a few questions for, I guess, if anyone's watching who's looking to get into fight choreography. Obviously, Dan's already mentioned that he's putting together a sort of fight school, which as soon as there's news on that, you'll be able to see it on the Talking of Talent page. We'll post about it when it goes up, and with more details on how you can get involved. But also, post training, how do you find the work? Like, are you on a register? Is there a separate way to, we all know about having to contact casting directors, but is there a separate way to get yourself in as a fighter for a film?
So it was a bit of a strange one at first, because when the course was conceived, before the course, you kind of couldn't get, or it was very hard to get, that number of qualifications all in one go by a certain age. So normally when you're looking at sort of climbing the right ranks as a fight director, you're looking at, your late 20s, early to mid 30s, just because of all the things that you've got to do separately. Whereas we were doing them all at once, condensed, 50 hours a week. So all of a sudden there was this troop, 16, 17 at a time troop of people who could go out and have all these skills. And we weren't, I'm not on the equity register of fight directors, and I'm not on the British stunt register, but I did graduate in a recession when so many production companies couldn't afford to pay equity rates for fight directors, or BSR rates. And I have my sort of challenges with the equity register of fight directors, because I know a fair number of people who are on there don't have the qualifications that they were asking us to get. And a lot of us were told, you can't call yourself a fight director, you can't do this, you have to give up jobs and everything like this. And slowly but surely we just started going, why? Like, what, someone says like they're happy for me to do this, I feel like I can do this, I'm going to do this. And a lot of it was word of mouth. A lot of it was, oh, my mate Dan's an actor who also does fights, and it would work both ways. A lot of times I would get jobs as a fight director or a fight arranger or an action coordinator or anything like this, and there would be like a small role that was maybe a tad more skilled or a tad more dangerous than the other ones, and I'd be like, oh, who's doing this? And they said, oh, we haven't cast it yet. So I'd be like, well, I'll do it then. So often, and they'd be like, oh my god, you're an actor as well. And then so then we, I did a lot of roles where I would antagonize the lead actor or the lead actress and get punched in the face for it. But yeah, so a lot of that did come from word of mouth, and now I've got a nice little sort of base of people that hire me quite often for fight gigs. But also I get a lot of scared friends. Like a lot of people who are in plays, who are in films, are like, Dan, like, can you just come in for a day, come in for half a day, because the director just wants us to make it up.
Right. Which
like,
is not on really. That's dangerous for one. And I think there's probably a lot of people who will watch this have probably found themselves in a similar situation as I certainly have. Because although I didn't do the sort of regimented training at school, I did go through the ranks of where you said you'll end up being 30. Because originally that was my idea as well, is to go into become a fight director. I sort of started when I was, I think, 17 and started doing courses before drama school and stuff. And I loved it. Amazing. But yeah, and I've done a few productions where, there's not been a fight choreographer on set and they go, oh, we'll just make it up. And you go, okay. But if someone gets hurt, whose fault is this and that sort of thing? But yeah, it's
I mean, or as a young, keen to impress performer, you just say, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Like that's why, I mean, you look at the rise of the intimacy coordinator now. So many intimacy coordinators are fight directors. Like they've transferred one skill into the other because it's a very similar set of skills. It's working with consent, it's working with boundaries, it's telling a story physically in a way that will achieve the most amount of dramatic effect, but keep your performers safe and safeguarded, and feeling like they're being heard. And oftentimes when I go onto a gig, most of the time I will pull the actors to one side and I'll be like, look, my sole job today is to ensure that you feel safe. So if at any point you don't feel safe and you don't feel like you can come to the director for that, you can come to me for that, because I can have that conversation. I will keep you away from having to, I'll say that it's from me, so you don't have to feel like you have to acquiesce to everything. But yeah, like, you see some jobs, especially, lower budget, but also mid to high budget jobs are, it is just a case of like, just do it. You'll be fine. In terms of both fighting and in terms of intimacy.
Yeah. I've actually been, I'll explain as I get there, but I've been listening to the Scrubs rerun podcast, and Zach Braff, who obviously plays JD in Scrubs, is having to go through quite a lot of physical therapy now, because they did a lot of pratfalls in Scrubs. There's a lot of times when they fall over the gurney or they trip over and smack their head into a door or something like this. And yeah, he's really damaged himself. And although I don't think they ever address it in the podcast, it does cross my mind of, was there like a fight director, even just for banging your head, which, we all know the sort of theory of it. You just flick your head back, and it's like, it doesn't matter how simple it looks. It's, later down the line, you could end up being in a lot of pain. And I think that's also important, that you have someone on set that's reliable and knows what they're doing.
Well, I will say as well, a lot of that sometimes can come from the actor as well. Like if any actors who are watching this, if someone offers you pads, wear the pads. Like I always try and make sure that every performer that is involved in the action gets their own elbow pads and their own knee pads, even pre-COVID, where, sharing pads has now become difficult. But, sometimes it's a fight to get actors to wear them. It's like, no, I'll be all right. And then, take 6, take 7, they'll sort of come up to me in a corner and be like, Dan, can I have them pads? My knees are starting to hurt. It's like, it's because it's what you're doing is, even if you're doing something fairly low grade, like you punch a bruise 10 times, and especially like if you're really getting into it and you're not really thinking about the safety elements, and you're losing yourself a little bit in the scene, then you just want that little bit of protection. Just like, I just have dancer knee pads whenever I do stuff, just because if I've got to take a knee or, like get low and crouch and everything like that, just something that's there between you and the cold, hard ground is just can make so much of a difference. But it is in the early part, especially, as the fight director is often the more sort of mercenary side of things. You come in for 2 days and you leave. You're not there from the start. You haven't built the rapport. So people are can be a bit like, yeah. But then, halfway through the day, it's like, pads, please. So I do kind of see it from both ways. Maybe Zach Braff, as a young guy, was kind of like, no, it's fine, it's all good. I'm all good. And then he hits his 40s and he's like, oh God.
Yeah. But I mean, to give him his credit, like he did study a lot of the. He actually explains in the podcast how he studied a lot of the pratfall actors of the golden years, as it were. And I think he did do sort of circus school for a while as well, for a little bit. And he's very good at the pratfalls. He's just paying for it now. But that's brilliant. And like I said, we'll put out any news regarding sort of a fight school that comes up, and we'll keep you all informed. I wanted to actually move on slightly onto what's kind of happening now for you, which has been kind of going for now the last 12 months, just over now, because during lockdown, you discovered the world of tabletop RPGs, which I think kind of exploded your mind slightly, and you've taken to water. And Dan has now put together, with help of another team, Sabotage the DM, sorry. And they stream almost daily, don't you? There's normally content.
Yeah, so we did for the anniversary. We stream daily. At the moment, we're back to our once a week slot, but we have also just released a new concept that we're doing, which is all boss battles. It's called Total Party Knockout. Nice. But yeah, that week that you came and joined us on was 14 hours a day, 7 days a week to celebrate the anniversary. Loads of different games, loads of different DMs. It was incredible and exhausting, and I definitely got piles from sitting at a chair for too long. Like it was intense, but yeah, it's been amazing. Like I didn't start with streaming. Weirdly, I've been trying to play a D&D game with Joe Thorpe, who is our DM, for probably about like 5 or 6 months up to that point. And he was the first person I contacted after that first Prime Minister announcement about the lockdown. I think literally 20 minutes later, I was like, so can we start the session now? So we started a homebrew Pirates campaign. It was the first thing that I'd ever played. And then maybe about 2-3 months into it, he was like, oh, I'm thinking about, doing this thing on Twitch. And here's the idea. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. We got a team together, all immersive performers. And yeah, it's bizarre. Like it's grown and grown and grown. And we've now got all these collaborations. We've got merch. The channel has like paid for, we got incredible support from our community. So we've everything that we get like financially at the moment, support wise, goes back into the stream. We've upgraded our mics, we've upgraded the character artwork and everything. But like prior to that, it became, before we even got on the stream, like as I'm sure with a lot of people, because I know a lot of performers, especially immersive performers, fell down the D&D wormhole this lockdown. It was kind of the safe space for where my creativity could be, because I didn't want to be an actor. Like I saw all these people like who were jumping on self-tape challenges or creating loads of content and like keeping themselves out there in the world, and no disrespect to that whatsoever, but like I didn't want to do it. Like I had a real malaise, and I kind of enjoyed it because I was like, I quite like the fact that I don't need this right now. Like I don't need to be an actor. I don't need to find a place to be seen or anything like this. But at the same point, yeah, I was really like, I don't know where my creativity can go right now. I don't feel safe putting it anywhere. Yeah. So the first couple of sessions of the D&D games that we played were, it was a really like lovely, safe place to be creative, to role play, to do, to be close to immersive stuff that we were doing. And then, it's just snowballed and rolled into this absolute juggernaut, which, I mean, it takes up so much of my life in terms of like producing it and, creating, editing the content. I mean, that's why we were 20 minutes late starting this, because I was sat there just editing something for it and was like, oh, I didn't even see I'd had the message. Sorry, Chris.
That's all right. No, it's brilliant. It's such a wonderful, for anyone of you who don't know, so obviously tabletop role-playing games encompasses Dungeons and Dragons. It encompasses games from Fantasy Flight, from like Star Wars, thematics, I guess. There's hundreds out there. And I've always said, if I ever taught at a drama school, the first thing I'd just say is go and play D&D. It's incredible fun. You know, if you can get a group of people who you feel, comfortable with, and also who are actors, that always helps because they'll jump straight in. But what is it you find that is the draw for you? Because had you played it before lockdown? Had you ever played any role play game before?
Not on a table. I'd always been drawn to RPG games on computer. Like, one of my favorite games as a teenager was Fallout 2, before it got first-person shooter, when it was still a turn-based system, right. Turn-based combat system, and stats and, better armor, better weapons, everything like this. I've always played those kinds of games. And yeah, it just, I know lots of people that had played it in the past, and I just love the creativity element of it, because it is a game where there is a lot of there's a lot of stats, there's a lot of maths and different dice and things like that. But the reason it has that is because you can literally do anything. Actually, I've realized now I've had a small amount of experience during drama school. There was a guy on our course called Matthew Rook, who has the most amazing mind, and he GM'd a couple of like one-off sessions for us on Mutants and Masterminds, which is a much reduced version of the D&D system where you play superheroes. Okay. So it's more sort of modern sense. And also he would take great pride in being like, okay, what character do you want? And like my most recent character, because we actually weirdly played it again like 5-6 years later. Like, everyone came around to my house and we had like a weekend of it. And he was like, what do you want to be? And I was like, okay, I want to be equal parts Deadpool and the Flash. And he was like, sweet, here's your character sheet.
Yeah.
Like, didn't have to stat it, didn't have to do any of that. Because at the time, I think it would have switched me off. And I just loved the bounce back and forth element. East 15 is a very, very improvised based method of training. The immersive stuff that I do is all exactly the same as, sending people on missions and doing things and building up within organizations and things like that. And I love it. And again, it was perfectly timed. My friends, one of the guys who I play most of the games with, Rob, who I mentioned before, he introduced me to Critical Role, and Critical Role replaced silence for me during lockdown. Like, I just listened to, I've now watched both of their campaigns in their entirety. Critical Role, for anyone who doesn't know, is it's a lot of content. Like, it's a group of voice actors from America who are sort of reasonably famous in their own right. They voice a lot of the dubbed anime. For Western audiences, and they had a game at home which they then took online, and it's just exploded. Like, it's unbelievable how much it's exploded. But so I think I've probably watched close to 300 4-hour episodes of that in the last sort of 15 months. But
campaign 2 is around 160 episodes. I think campaign 1 was slightly less than that, but each episode is between 3 and 5 hours. So there's a lot of content out there. And I definitely recommend it. It's an amazing show if you enjoy it. As Dan was saying, the voice actors, Matthew Mercer, who you will have heard in some things. He is so many video game characters. It's unreal. He's
Captain Levi. I couldn't believe he was Captain Levi in Attack on Titan.
Apparently he's Captain Levi. I actually don't know the film. So that's on me. Ashley Johnson, who plays Ellie in The Last of Us, and she's also in Avengers at one point. She's the waitress who thanks Captain America at the end of Avengers 1. You've got just these, I won't list them all, but check them out. They're amazing. It's such good fun because you just throw yourself in there. And again, it's basically just an improv class. You've got a 4-hour improv class. Here's your given circumstance, go nuts. Anyone watching this who is ever thought about looking into role-playing games, find a group of friends, or go down to your friendly local game store. I feel like I'm back on Asmodee now. This is basically the spiel we do. But no, seriously, check out there's amazing online services at the moment. I think there's a London Roleplay Society where you can get involved on Discord and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, check out this stuff. And I think we will wrap that up there. That's actually well over an hour. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining me on Talking with Talent today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And everyone out there, stay safe, stay creative. I hope this has been enjoyable. Oh, good Lord. I hope you enjoyed it.
Enjoyable too.
Yeah, bye.